got
But I wanted to kind of talk about like what each resort does really, really well and what each resort doesn't do well, because each place, they're very much different animals, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll start with you, Andy and Liz. What do you guys think about like we'll start with Walt Disney World. What does Walt Disney World do that's stronger, that's better than Disneyland?
The bubble.
The bubble.
The Disney bubble.
Yeah.
It is so massive. It is so huge. You get on property and you feel like you never need to leave.
Right.
All right. But it's Disney, Disney, Disney. Especially if you're staying on property, your resort is themed, the bus is themed, you go to the parks, there's music everywhere. You're always in the Disney magic and the Disney mood. The bubble, Disney World does it better.
Oh, for sure. And also what Walt Disney World does better, you kind of touched on transportation. They do that amazing, but because you're in that bubble.
And they're huge.
Food allergies. And I think overall, quality of food overall, it's a very overarching thing, is better at Walt Disney World. I mean, you've got.
My wife would agree with you on that one.
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah.
Very much.
you've got some amazing, like these types of restaurants that they have at Walt Disney World do not exist anywhere else.
Right.
They're only at Walt Disney World. And it's so amazing. Oh goodness, somebody popped out.
Oh no, it's okay. That's all right. We're still here. But yeah, you have like V&A, you know, which is its kind of own thing. You have the Top of the World Lounge. You got like just amazing,
but you
just
got all
world
these
class
options.
Yeah, you got all these options.
Asia at Disney Springs. You've got.
But yeah, you tell them I've got an allergy, and they're like, "Don't worry, I've got you covered."
Well, and it's not even just the options of food; it's also the experiences you get with the food, like the backdrops, the theming to the restaurants. And Vash and I have had many conversations, and even with OG, that we talked about. You know, Disneyland needs more sit-down restaurants.
Yeah.
Oh, they need something more, because it was super hard to have a gluten allergy and being a celiac and just getting good food. And I was like, really? Because everybody tells me that Disneyland food is so much better than Disney World. And I'm like, yeah, but they have like allergy-free kitchens in Disney World. And I feel good about that.
So three things that Disney World does amazing, right? So transportation, the bubble, and their food. That being said, let's talk about Disneyland for a second.
Sure.
And Disneyland, oh my gosh, they have the best churro in the whole wide world. Like Disney World cannot compete with Disneyland churros. Period. End of discussion.
I'm so jealous.
No. I agree with you. It's like taking a piece of cardboard and dipping it in sugar with Walt Disney World. So
yeah, and I don't know why, because they go through so many of them. Like they should be so fresh. But that being said, so Disneyland, what Disneyland does amazing, in my opinion, is that they try different types of food. So they're experimental. They're not afraid to take a chance on something to see what their clientele. They're very kind of almost more specific local park feel clientele thinks. So they're very, and that's what when people say Disneyland does food better, I think that's what they mean. It's like they're willing to take this chance and do all these amazing things with their food. And if you're there for that moment that it comes out, like, wow, cool, you got to experience that. If not, like shawarma. Hello, I got to have shawarma for the first time. And it's amazing. And I love it at Adventures Campus. I love it. I love it. I love it. And
I heard.
Right now, it's my favorite junk food. Ronto wrap was, and it's still a close second. So it could go back and forth. The other thing, though, that I think that Disneyland does amazing is their characters.
Oh goodness,
way more characters out in the wild.
Yeah,
interaction, just seeing the different, diverse amount of characters that you have was so spectacular. I'm like,
loved it.
Disney World needs to take some lessons here. Oh yeah, that was really a lot of fun.
You do not get the character. You do not get as many character interactions or as many opportunities to have character interactions at Walt Disney World. Yes, staged.
You know, it's very staged.
when you see Alice and the Mad Hatter walking through Fantasyland, it's a pretty magical moment, you know.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's really cool that we have retained that, you know, even throughout all this time. What about in your mind? I mean, what I like about Disneyland, and I don't know if this is universal, but it's just the kind of convenience factor of everything kind of being pretty close, and where you don't have to necessarily rely on any transportation to get around. Did you find that in your experience, or did you see that as a negative?
At Disneyland?
At Disneyland, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. There were actually things that I really did like about that. So I would start with we stayed at the Motel 6. Okay.
0.6 miles away from the Motel 6 door to the gates.
So cheap. Okay.
Yeah, but
that's cool.
How much the amount of time you have
cheap.
to walk from, like, if you parked at Disney World to get into the gates?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, like, yeah, like, you know, just to kind of like compare that. So it was so nice to be that close.
And I would start with my cup of coffee. They had free coffee. I would put my cup of coffee, and then I would just take said cup of coffee. And by the time I got into what I call the Disneyland bubble, which is that, you know, you cross over Harvard, right? And you're there, like you're walking, there's the bus stops area, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my Disneyland bubble, because that's when you start to hear the music.
Yep, that's
Traffic noise is gone. You start to hear the music, the people, the chatter, I'm so excited, you know, I'm a princess or whatever, I'm a pirate, you know, whatever. You start to hear all these things going on, and it's Disney. It's all Disney oriented. And I got my cup of coffee. There's a trash can within 30 steps per Walt's guidance. Okay. There's a trash can, and I chunk it. And then I walk up, and then security goes through my bag with a fine-tooth comb, because you can't just walk through the little things you can at Walt Disney World now.
I got the security way easier.
Hey, you know what? Thank you, security guys, because you're awesome. And I know some of you guys are following us now. Like, you rock. But that being said,
scanners.
The scanners are nice just to
like,
walk through.
They literally like open up the bag that's in the bag that's in the bag. And I'm like, I get it. I get it. But as a vlogger, I have so much stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one thing that I think that has really benefited Disneyland, and this is kind of like the gift and the curse, is the size of it, right? Because like the limited size is a curse, because we have to deal with the local politics in the area. We got to deal with the residents and the local businesses. It's harder to expand and all that. But one thing that I think it has been a real silver lining and a blessing for our smaller scale resort is that I think that the limitations has sort of bred a lot of creativity. Like, you know, the Haunted Mansion, the stretching room that we have was built kind of out of necessity to get people underground and outside the park into the show building, underneath the railroad tracks, underneath the berm. We probably wouldn't have had that stretching room if not for Disneyland's limited size, you know? So that's kind of these cool, creative things the Imagineers kind of work around. I mean, even recently, I think with like Galaxy's Edge, the way they integrated Batu with the Rivers of America, who would have thought that would have worked so well? And it did. Yeah. It was creative solutions to this stuff. And I think that's really benefited Disneyland, is those limitations have really forced the Imagineers to kind of think outside the box and get really creative. I think that was the one blessing, I think, of having a limited size resort.
And to speak to how amazing Disney's Imagineers are, the same stretching room that they went down in with California, imagine how confused they were when the water table in Florida goes, it's only down 2 feet.
Yeah, you can't
2
go
feet.
down.
Like, you can't go down. Figure something else out, but you can't go down. And so they did. They figured something else out. And having been to both now, the only difference of the stretching room really is you feel the elevator.
Yeah.
Wow.
Disneyland, you feel the elevator.
So when you go to Walt Disney World, you're like, is this stretching? I'm like, is it? I don't know what's going on. Like man, as a kid, you're like, what's going on? Like, how is this happening?
I don't feel like I'm moving, but they're moving
going on like right now. And so, but then you go to Disneyland, and as an adult, and I'm like, oh, I felt it.
It's moving.
It's real. Like this is the most excited.
This room is actually moving.
It was the most excited at that point that I'd been all day, and I was like, and I was super excited, but I got so massively excited when we were going down.
That's awesome.
And then to go out into the queue, and part of Walt Disney World's ride is the queue.
Yeah, that was really awesome.
For Disneyland. That was so neat. Yeah. Sorry.
It's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's interesting the different approaches and how each resort has its own like approach, and there's a different culture, you know, like we're known here in Anaheim, the Disneyland Resort's known as a locals park, which I really don't like that. Dre and George know all about that, and we'll get into that in a minute. I don't really like that, but we are.
Like
realistically, we're known as a locals park, and then Florida's known as a tourist park. Very different animals, you know.
There's a feel.
I'm sorry, what was that?
There's a feel.
Yeah.
So you're known as a local park because there's a feel.
Yeah,
right. So when everybody walks into Walt Disney World, there is no, unless you are a local, there is no like, hey, let's stop off to the side and grab a Starbucks and take 5 minutes and just in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is, and just chill.
Well, that's the funny thing, because I'm not a local to either one. And yet it's like a completely different feel, especially when you do one vacation and you do Disneyland and Walt Disney World back to back. That what I just did, because I did Disneyland first and then Walt Disney World. And I have to say, the more that I'm going to Disneyland, as far as the park goes itself, when I go to Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, as much as I have been to Walt Disney World more, I feel less out of my element because there's so much more to do as far as attractions go in Disneyland Park as opposite of Magic Kingdom Park. As far as with Fantasyland, like you got all the classic dark rides. I mean, Fantasyland at Disneyland is like the quintessential of all Fantasylands.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
perfect.
So it's like when I walked through Magic Kingdom's Fantasyland, they just look like buildings with signs on them. There's like nothing, you know. So it's like you kind of look at it, it's a small world to Disneyland. You know, so yeah. So it's like that's where, but my appreciation for Walt Disney World comes because, as you guys had mentioned, you're in the Disney bubble. You get like the immersive experiences with the restaurants and the again, not even just with the restaurants, but like the overall theming, like the Skipper Canteen. You know, they crack the corny jokes with you and in the restaurant while you're dining. So it's like it's all that experience.
Your waiter or waitress is your skipper.
Yeah,
they're
a skipper.
A skipper.
Yeah,
that's great.
But then there's
just Kevin Lively. I don't know if any of you guys miss Kevin Lively or not, but I mean, he is one of the great Imagineers that kind of, you know, really took the Jungle Cruise to the next level. Kind of definitely this new showpiece that's come about was through Kevin Lively. The movie, he was a huge consultant for the movie. All of that started the Jungle Cruise in Tokyo Disneyland. I mean, just he's an amazing Imagineer. Unfortunately, no longer with the company, but wow, man! I mean, I miss him because he was so good. He was so good, and he was just as corny. He started as his whole start with the company before he became an Imagineer was as a Jungle Cruise skipper, and so cool. he is that guy. Like he cracks the bad dad jokes. Love it. Okay,
dad jokes.
Come on,
every day.
Is there a bad dad joke? I don't think there is. I think.
I want to because Dre and George have heard my rants on the locals park thing, but I want to kind of like talk to you, Andy and Liz. I'm gonna bring up my kind of whole thing about the locals park thing and kind of get your kind of feedback on it. Okay. Because, so Disneyland, I
might offer a counter argument to this, but go ahead, OJ.
Yes, absolutely. And after I'm done, if you, Dre, if you want to do your counter argument, and we'll go from there.
You got it.
My issue with the locals park is you have this park, Disneyland, this revolutionary idea back in 1955. Walt Disney made his speech to the world. This is for the world, right? This is a inspiration to the world. And then when the park opened, there were like heads of state and presidents and, you know, prime ministers that would come, and it would be like an honor to come and meet Walt or go to this park, right? It's very much a global, very special, like eighth wonder of the world kind of thing. Somewhere down the line, and I don't know really what happened, it kind of became known as like this locals park. And in my opinion, that kind of like demotes it in a way to almost like, okay, you're Six Flags or you're not. Like, I think the park was special with this whole mindset of like it being this global draw. And I think through the years that kind of got chipped away, maybe because they built more parks around the world. For whatever reason, maybe the annual pass program kind of did a little bit of that. I don't know. It kind of, for me, I really want Disneyland to be that world draw again. I just think the park is so special. I just want the world to be drawn to it, not just the locals park. Dre, go ahead and give your counter argument, and then we'll talk to Fun Fiero about this.
I think, okay, so I've had this debate with OG before, and yes, I understand the world destination part of it, right? And we see those videos back in like the 50s, and yeah, the heads of state. It's really, really cool, really, really cool time. But as we know, Walt Disney World cropped up, and obviously that's kind of the vacation kingdom, right? And I think that kind of maybe took a little bit of that because everybody wanted to see like the biggest thing. But I like the locals park kind of moniker because I don't see it as kind of a demeaning thing. No. I see it as kind of that, like, you know, it's kind of that huggable place that everybody comes to visit multiple times a year. And because of that, you know, there are certain traditions that are maintained at Disneyland that necessarily have been lost over the years at Walt Disney World because they cater to an entirely different audience. And so, like, I think Disneyland has really benefited from that kind of locals kind of branding, even though they are in the process of trying to change it, you know, as they have been doing for maybe about 10, 20 years now. But I think it's kind of benefited from that. It's maintained, like I said, the traditions. It's, you know, the staff there are a little bit more hungry to get your attention, right? Because there are other options in the area. And I don't know, you know, I dig it. It comes with perks, right? Like food, for example, we just discussed. Like, they're a little bit more experimental because they do want, like, you know, every single little, like, eatery over there to you know, have business and to absorb the guests and so forth. And you know, they're willing to kind of change out food on a more regular basis. They have specials. They have, you know, other things to kind of grab that local market. And as a result, it's really kind of it's like a really nice, charming park that is, you know, got one foot in the past, one foot in the future. And I think it's found that balance quite well. Does that make any sense? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, it does to me.
Yeah.
Because it just reminded me of, we were there for Food and Wine Festival in Disneyland, and we were on Pixar Pier, and it wasn't Disney music being played. It was just, you know, like pop, dance music. There was a dance party. There was a DJ. That would never happen at Disney World. But it felt so authentic.
Not necessarily at the parks. It would be a cultural
Disney
thing.
Springs,
Yeah, Disney Springs, absolutely.
Disney
But not at the parks. If it was a Food and Wine Festival and there was something like pop being played, it would be pop from that country and world showcase.
Got it. Interesting.
But walking along with that music on the pier, you know, and Pixar palling around, going in the background, and the Incredicoaster going, it felt so nostalgic and real. Like I had just stepped back 20 or 30 years into the past, and that I just felt like I was there in that moment, and it made it so special. And I remember even telling you, man, this would never happen at Disney World with this music. This is not Disney music, but I'm loving it.
And her favorite part is DCA. Like, that's her favorite part from the two, which is wild because mine is still Disneyland. So, okay. I understand what so sorry. I understand what both of you guys are saying because, okay, my take on it is I do believe that the local park aspect is a good thing because it allows them to do things to cater to an audience that comes way more often than a global community now, right? The global community goes to Walt Disney World. That's just the way it is. Yeah. The other thing, though, is that Walt Disney World is way more scared to try new things because of, well, we don't want to
the massive amounts of people and the diversity.
To not offend, that's not the word, but to not include somebody into something, right? We want to make sure that everybody gets to participate in this new food, this new ride, this everything. Mm-hmm. But at Disneyland, they know their audience. Like their audience is, they know. You're coming from Arizona, Southern California, Oregon, Washington. I mean, you're coming, or Northern California, you're coming from that West Coast, and then a little bit broader, but it's not a global thing specifically anymore, because at the time Disneyland was the best thing. It was the best thing in the world. It was the best thing. There's no denying that. And yes, that's why heads of state came there. That's why presidents would come there. If you wanted to be elected president, you would go there because you wanted to connect with the people, right? I mean, you're part of the people, and if you want to be part of the people, you go to Disneyland, because that's where it's at. And Walt said it, to all who come to this happy place, welcome. And people drove from East Coast to West Coast, flew. They drove from East Coast to West Coast, staying in like these horrible hotels that maybe they were good at the time, but they are horrible now. And they would get there, and then they would enjoy. And the bad thing is that like you said, I mean, it's like all this buildup around it. And it was just the politics and all of this stuff that Disney World, well, now they're dealing with. But
they are. Until
recently, didn't have to deal with all of these massive political things that stood in their way. And they were able, and once you get in there, you're in this bubble. And you're in this whole different universe. It really does. It feels like this whole different universe, because cast members are amazing, and they really do. They make you just feel. The other thing, though, is that cast members at Disneyland are different than cast members at Walt Disney World.
Oh, yeah.
And there's that local feel. So the cast member at Walt Disney World is more of the quintessential, like, by the book training that not Walt. Okay, this came after Walt. Cookie cutter,
American image,
Americana,
going for it.
Like, and then at Disneyland, it's like a little bit. I like it because it does
sassy.
Yeah, a little bit sass. I like it a lot, and that is not a tarnish on Disneyland. That is, I think, a pro for Disneyland, because it's real. Like, it's magical and real. Like, they can do both. It's okay. Like, they're human.
And then I'm going to throw in here, there is this stewardship that you get, the feeling of ownership and pride from the Disneyland cast members, that as soon as you walk through the door and you start looking around this park, the way it is, the perfection, the landscaping, the trees, everything about it, and their ownership of what it is and how they feel very personally connected. Yeah, you say local park, but it's not Elitch Gardens where I can eat a mustard packet.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I can have, and they don't care.
It's not Six Flags.
No, it's not Six Flags. It's not that, but it is this sense of pride and this history, and then where you can just like feel, like I said, you walk through and you can feel the grandeur, but you get what they love about it and what they feel so passionate about it, and you're just like, wow, that was super cool. I mean, I just love cast member who's been here for like 20 years and just survived COVID and came back and had this awesome story to tell. And you're just like, wow, that is just so amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing with Disneyland versus Disney World is that the fact that and I go back to like the food allergies. It's so very, very, very hard with a food allergy. I don't have one. I can eat whatever I want, and it's amazing.
I can't. So Disneyland was really fun. I'm the no Fun Fiero for the food allergy.
But with the food allergy, it makes it does feel much like any local park, which is like, oh, we forgot about that.
Right.
That was an oversight. And at Walt Disney World, where it is a global, like, there's only two things you cannot food-wise bring into Disney World, Walt Disney World. And I think it's the same for Disneyland, but it's alcohol and anything with glass.
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing in glass and no alcohol. Same thing for Walt Disney World. The thing is that at Walt Disney World, it means even more because people with cultural dietary needs, and then obviously food allergies and all of these things, like you can bring pretty much whatever you want into the park. So that way you can step over to the side and have lunch, breakfast, dinner, whatever you need. If you have to have things at a very particular time of day based on, religious or whatever, all of these things,
they're very aware of it.
They're very aware of it.
Accommodating, and they have provisions.
But when they serve food at restaurants, they went a step beyond, and they said we're aware of that for our restaurants as well. Like I can't even imagine going to any restaurant at Walt Disney World and you not getting probably the best meal.
Oh yeah,
even if they have to make it like
its own separate
fresh
tray. Yeah, they make it fresh, and you may have to wait a couple more minutes, but then you get it. Disneyland, it was just way easier just to bring my own food and drool over what Andy was eating that I couldn't eat. I'm like, I'm peanuts. Thank God I have a peanut allergy. That shawarma looks good.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Ray. Go ahead.
Oh no, on the food allergy thing, Justin Scard, who I love his work, and he's been such an inspiration for me and probably many others. He talks about the food allergy and how it's like, man, I believe it was Alien Pizza Planet used to make a gluten-free pizza that was really, really good. Now they don't have it anymore. And he talks about the lack of options, and I never really thought about that until seeing it through his eyes. And you're exactly right. When you go to Walt Disney World, they will basically cater to you because of that kind of global market that they have to actually cater to. At the same time, does come with some costs in that, like, for example, if you do a kind of a movie style attraction at Disneyland, it doesn't really last very long because people come so often, right? Whereas Walt Disney World, you might have that for a long, long time because people are coming there for maybe once in a lifetime, once every 5 years, 10 years, that kind of thing. So I think there's some definitely benefits and cons. But go ahead, OG. I'm so sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that man, what was I gonna say? Well, oh yes, I remember now. Liz, you mentioned, or I think maybe Andy mentioned that you love DCA.
I did.
Oh, that's her favorite of the two. Yeah,
it is.
DCA is a fantastic park. Now, obviously, my heart is with Disneyland, the original, but I love DCA, and I'm always rooting for that park because it's really been like the underdog since day one. And Disneyland's like the A++ student, and it's like I'm always so excited every time DCA gets something. I'm like, yeah, it's just more fun because it's like I don't know, it's like that scrappy, like trying to crawl its way up, trying to be as good as Disneyland kind of energy. And I love that park so much. Buena Vista Street, World of Color, Cars Land. It's just a beautiful little place.
Well, it really is, and to me, I think it's to some degree a little bit more immersive. Okay,
way more immersive than Disneyland.
Now we're in
I
the
find
world
Disneyland
of immersiveness
a little
now.
schizophrenic when I go.
Please do
Galaxy's Edge did
tell.
not be there to me.
Do tell. I'm curious.
This is interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. See, Disney. All right, DCA. I love Cars Land. I love walking into Cars Land. It is epic. You just feel like you're in a little bubble.
Right.
Avengers Campus, not so much, but they did a good job. They tried.
Yeah.
Right? I love it. All right. Incredicoaster, I love it. And Pixar Palin around. Oh, the smells. Walking on the boardwalk down there. I love everything about it. And Disneyland, I love. But it's tiny compared to Magic Kingdom.
It is.
And I'm really confused as to why Galaxy's Edge is there. I'm like, I am not. My brain doesn't comprehend it because I'm so used to Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios. And DCA, just the entrance of it reminds me of Hollywood Studios, and the vibe and the feel remind me of Hollywood Studios. And I'm like, why is Galaxy's Edge over here, guys?
See, and actually, believe it or not, Liz, I'm actually the opposite. Because, and here's the funny thing, because I'm so used to being at Disney Hollywood Studios, but I cannot stand the entrance from Toy Story Land into
that
Galaxy's
one is kind of a letdown. That is kind of a weird entrance.
The
other one. The other one's epic.
I would have loved to have seen like the transition, like if they had like a Darth Vader action figure, like sealed in a box, like moving into Galaxy or something of that nature.
Not too late.
not too late.
My best argument, though, and not everyone agrees with this, but my best argument for Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland is this. I think there's very few franchises, I think, that can kind of get away with having its own land in Disneyland. But I think Star Wars is one of them, because that property kind of encompasses everything Disneyland is about. It's a fairy tale. It's a galactic fairy tale. It's tomorrow. It's space travel, the galaxy, you know. It's about cowboys and princesses, and it's new frontiers, right? It's very much all of the lands almost at Disneyland in one little area. I mean, even the marketplace in Batuu kind of feels like a galactic adventure land in a lot of ways. I think it's almost, in a weird way, almost like a love letter to Disneyland. It's sort of like its own little space Disneyland. Now, all these different elements.
Batuu is on the edge of Frontierland, which is supposed to be on the edge of the galaxy, right?
And once my brain got past the point of it just didn't feel right to go from Frontierland to Galaxy's Edge, I was really super happy that I got into Galaxy's Edge, and y'all, I didn't have to think about anything about where I was going. Yeah. I knew exactly where everything was. This so just felt like home.
Like it literally felt like
Disneyland. I was like I was just trying to figure out where everything was, and it's smaller, and it's on the the map is smaller, and it's not as strung out as Disney World is. But when I walked through, and I just felt like because I know exactly where everything is. I know where Argus Cantina is. I know where Doc Ondu is. I've never been here before, but I'm going. Let's go.
So
let's go.
Liz and I always, well, we don't always agree, but what I will say is this, is that I love having Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland versus Hollywood Studios. And the reason is, I never thought about it in the way that you described, OG, with the, princess and the cowboys and the fairy tales and galactic fairy tale. I really like that, though. But when we were there, I mean, our most recent video is of us having a Star Wars day at Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
Which
is way easier to do.
Yeah. I mean, we had Hyperspace Mountain, we had Star Tours, and all of Galaxy's Edge, of which you do not get all of that at Hollywood Studios, along with the love of Star Wars at Disneyland. There is this love of Star Wars at Disneyland that does not exist at Walt Disney World. That's not to say that Star Wars fans don't exist at Walt Disney World. Understand that overall, there is this passion behind Star Wars. And I don't know if it's because, hey, it started in California and all. I don't know. I don't know if that's why or not, but there is this overwhelming, like, everybody seems to relate better. It's not just a ride.
Doesn't feel as
you can
distance.
have this massive experience, and to have that that does not exist at Walt Disney World currently. There at the time of this video, there is no characters roaming around Walt Disney World, and they are roaming around and in your face.
That was do
the Kylo Ren. Dre, do the Kylo Ren.
There you go, Dre. Do the voice changer.
You have summoned me. Why?
Yes.
Why have you come to this planet of Batuu? What is your purpose?
Yes,
that kind of stuff. Yeah,
like that is that, and it's just there. It's in your face, and then you get to go when you're off planet, and you're getting to go to Hyperspace Mountain, which we got to do. Oh my gosh,
phenomenal! Loved it.
Okay, and then Star Tours, which I think is, I don't know, it's the same Star Tours basically, but I loved how everything was right there, and then on top of that, I got to go do Snow White.
There you go.
I didn't have to go to another park. I didn't have to hop on a Disney bus. I didn't have to get an Uber or a Lyft. I didn't have to, I didn't have to do all of that.
I got out of the bubble to go back to the bubble.
Right.
Well, and you know what's interesting too about the two different resorts in terms of IP? At Disneyland, the Californians and the Disneylanders, we've been kind of conditioned to have Star Wars in Disneyland because we've had Star Tours since like 1986.
Yeah,
I think it was 87. So it feels very normal to have Star Wars in the Castle Park because we've had one for 30 plus years here. So
Right.
when they added Batu, okay, it's more Star Wars. We've had Star Wars, now we get more of it.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because like with Florida, it's different because you guys always had Star Tours in Hollywood Studios, and you got Batu over there in Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
But even with Marvel, it's different because the Orlando fans are like, oh man, Marvel is a Universal thing. Because that's what they grew up on is Marvel,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the trademark and everything, the rights. So
Yep.
yeah, they got that.
They got it. So and then it's like a kind of like a culture shock to come here to a Disney park coming from Orlando and have have Marvel.
DCA does it better, I think, as far as I know, and I watched the video on the with you guys with the DCA. I really like it. I think it could be better.
Oh, it definitely could be better.
And Dre, I agree with you. It's you know, it's the Chapek era of like it's almost there.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. It's not.
Like, I had a grander entrance.
Like and good on him. Good on him for like it exists.
He meant well.
And yes, there should be that epic ride that they just haven't done yet. It's been just, it was supposed to happen and it didn't. And, you know, with the Quinjet and all that, right. But okay. That being said, the transition of music is amazing. When you're in there, everything feels epic.
But it's just not long enough to get in there.
But it does feel like, hey, you better epically eat something or drink something.
And spend some money at the store.
Right.
Yeah, whereas Carland, you have that whole street that you're walking down, and it just feels like you're transitioning, and you're like, wow. And that's what I wish Adventures Campus was, man. Like, we need another 100, 150, 200 feet to get into the land.
It's a stark
and
difference
to get out
between
of the land.
It's a stark difference. No pun intended.
No, there's every pun intended
between Iger and Chapek, right? Yeah. Right there, right? Those two things. But Avengers Campus it's a land that hasn't been set free yet.
Right.
There's something there. They're waiting. I don't know. But it can be more.